It has been a cloudy Thursday across Central Oregon, still warm, and some sprinkles are rolling through the high desert. Hey everyone, I'm Darrell Winninger, the Chief Meteorologist at Central Oregon Daily News, and today is a little bit of a shift in our weather pattern. By tomorrow, we crank the temperature back up, and we actually have a chance of some thunderstorm activity, so a lot of changes are expected through the next couple of days, even as we go into this Father's Day weekend. So let's do a deep dive in your most reliable forecast. We'll look at some of the changes that we've already seen, what happens next, and how that's going to impact our plans. Starting off with what it looks like right here and right now, we have that cloud cover. In a couple of these cameras, you can actually see a few showers off in the distance, but most of that is Virga. At best, a couple parts of Central Oregon are catching a few sprinkles. Now, through the next 24 to 48 hours, we are looking at a higher chance of rain and even some thunderstorms, and most of that happens through the day Friday, mostly during the afternoon, getting into the evening, then overnight, everything's going to be fizzling out. And this is partly due to a low pressure system that's working its way out of Northern California through Oregon and really through the Pacific Northwest. That's what triggers the potential for some thunderstorms as we go forward through the day tomorrow to wrap up the work week. Tomorrow is Juneteenth, and it does look like nothing severe is expected, but for the most part, South Central Oregon has a chance of some scattered thunderstorms, and a few of those could stray into parts of the high desert. Even as we look at just at a glance, some of the forecast model data here through the day tomorrow, we start off mild, warm, well into the 80s by noon, and then 80s and 90s by 5 p.m. That's when we're going to be on either side of 90 degrees, but also look at the forecast model. It actually shows the potential for some thunderstorms at that time, and any thunderstorms that develop have the potential of abundant lightning strikes, and that's one reason that I'm hyper focused on this chance of thunderstorms Friday. Saturday brings a whole different change up and a different reason for heightened fire risk, and we're going to be talking about that here too, because there is not just the red flag warning because of this potential of thunderstorms over South Central and Southeastern Oregon, but if you look over the eastern two-thirds of our Tri-County area, all of Crook County, parts of Jefferson, Deschutes County, going all the way up through Wasco County and all the way over to Pendleton, that huge area of orange, that is a fire weather watch. And a fire weather watch is almost a red flag warning. It just means it looks like conditions are going to be headed this way off in the distance. So by the time we get to tomorrow, I fully expect that fire weather watch to be upgraded to a red flag warning, and that's because of Saturday. Now Saturday, we're not looking at the potential of thunderstorms, but it's going to be critically dry, similar to today when we have relative humidity values in the teens and some single digits, but then it's also going to be breezy. Today we mostly have a light breeze. That's why we really don't have any fire weather concerns for the most part, although as the drier and drier it gets, anytime it's breezy, it does not take much at all to spark a fire. So we are on height alert across the high desert because of that reason. However, we just have the red flag warning tomorrow and probably another one on Saturday. Now, when it comes to satellite and radar, notice there is a lot of cloud cover over Central Oregon, and we were seeing that in the cameras. And what we also see is a few light showers. Now, granted, most of this is not actually reaching the ground, but a few sprinkles across parts of Central Oregon. But when we go ahead and look at the road conditions from traffic cameras courtesy of ODOT, we don't see any wet roads at all. We also don't see any showers. Looking up into the Cascades also looks like it's mostly dry roads up there. But when we focus on what's headed our way, it's a low pressure system that's still developing, and we can actually see just a few spots where we're starting to see a little bit of that circulation, but really this wave of moisture pushes through. Tomorrow we get that next developing low, and once that pushes through, that's what triggers the potential of thunderstorm activity. Now, over the Pacific Ocean, there is a broad ridge of high pressure, and that high is almost a blocking high, keeping that huge low that's over the Gulf of Alaska and northern Pacific Ocean from coming anywhere near us. And so after this week low works its way up from Northern California through the Pacific Northwest, we're back to sunshine, back to temperatures topping out in the lower to mid 80s for Father's Day weekend, and that's before our next heating trend. So even when we just focus on water vapor, this is water vapor satellite imagery, it also still has those isobars, which are equal lines of pressure, and when they get really tightly stacked together, that's where we have stronger winds. Right now, those stronger winds are offshore, and currently over Central Oregon, we have a lot of that moisture in the air, and what's happening is is it is critically dry. In fact, we're going to take a step off this real quick and look at relative humidity values. We are seeing relative humidity, these are all percentages, in the teens and single digits with one spot, La Pine at 21%. So when you have an air mass that's this dry and there are sprinkles rolling through, that precipitation just evaporates as it falls down and it doesn't actually reach the surface. Tomorrow, that's going to be the case for many of us, but where some of these thunderstorms develop, that's where we have a shift in the weather pattern. So let's go ahead and look at your forecast model. This is a high resolution model, one that sometimes we use on air, just not all the time. And I'm going to reposition the camera here just so we can get a better view of South Central Oregon, because between Klamath Falls, Lakeview, going all the way up to the Deschutes County line, that's where our best chance of thunderstorm activity is through the next 24 hours. So let's fast forward. Through tonight, we actually catch some clearing and some in and out clouds through tomorrow morning. Then Friday, freeze frame at noon. We're seeing those clouds start to develop, and a lot of them pushing up through Klamath and Lake counties. Really, the southern third of the state has the cloud cover with a few showers. Then through the afternoon, a couple of thunderstorms develop. So we do have this potential for scattered thunderstorms over south central Oregon, but notice around eastern Deschutes County and southern Crook County, and I'm going back and forth with the model just so you can see it develop and track its steps a couple of times. We do have this potential of some thunderstorm activity. It's just not going to be for everybody. In fact, most of us are going to stay dry, and the bulk of this rain is going to be well to the east of the 97 corridor, going all the way up to the 26 corridor in Crook County, past Prineville. Even Prineville looks like it's going to stay mostly dry, and that not necessarily good news until you take into consideration that any of these cells that develop are going to be capable of producing abundant lightning strikes. Then it turns into good news that we're not getting that precipitation. But then by Saturday, we start to clear out. Tons of sunshine expected through the rest of this Father's Day weekend. So let's talk temperatures. In the last 24 hours, highs of today have been in the lower to mid 80s with a few 90s. So we had a lot more cloud cover, and that held back the heating that we were expecting across central Oregon. Now, there was one spot at Warm Springs that got up to 90 degrees. It's still at 90 degrees. It's not going to stay there for very much longer, and by tomorrow it's going to get even hotter. But today we actually had a slight dip in temperatures. In fact, when we go ahead and look at the delta T, the change in temperatures, we're running between 5 degrees cooler and 3 degrees warmer than 24 hours ago. Now, for tonight, we fall back into the 50s. Some 40s are expected. And then through the day tomorrow, we top out on either side of 90 degrees. So we're looking at 90s with some 80s across the high desert, but add in the additional cloud cover, add in that chance of some thunderstorms, and our UV intensity forecast does go down. We're going to be in that high range, that orange range. Highs in the 90s, some 80s, and isolated PM thunderstorms. Then Saturday, Sunday, Monday, tons of sunshine. UV intensity cranks back up to very high. But we are expecting that potential for some storms before 80s. So tomorrow, for Juneteenth, we're looking at mid to upper 80s and some lower to mid 90s across central Oregon. This is going to be that top temperature before we cool back down, and it's just going to be a modest cooling trend. Not looking at any showers by Saturday. In fact, AM clearing, PM sunshine, temperature still running above that average high of 77 degrees and continuing that way through Father's Day. So just in this 72-hour stretch, we have two holidays. We have Juneteenth on Friday, and that's when we could catch some of those thunderstorms, but it's not going to be for everybody. And then by Sunday, on Father's Day, we're looking at sunshine, lower to mid 80s, a light breeze. Saturday is when those stronger winds heighten the risk of fire activity or fire danger. Now, when it comes to future precipitation, we're not looking at much, and I'll get a zoomed in look at this here in just a minute or so. But because of this high pressure, we're not expecting too much in the way of development, just that potential of some thunderstorms, and that'll be isolated. The clouds clear out of here on Saturday, then we get back into our next heating trend starting Monday and Tuesday. So let's go ahead and look at your forecast model. There's that low pressure over Northern California. That's going to be what triggers the potential of some thunderstorms, but it's not going to be a lot. Here's how it plays out. By Friday, increasing clouds. By Friday at about 4 p.m., a few showers and maybe a couple thunderstorm cells. At this point, just over south central Oregon, and then some of that develops into parts of the high desert, and then we're done. So as quickly as these pop-up thunderstorms start, they wrap up on the evening side of the day. So by Saturday, we start off with some clouds, then clearing, then sunshine. But Saturday, it is going to be breezy. That's why we have the heightened risk of fire danger across central Oregon. Then by Sunday on Father's Day, tons of sunshine, low to mid 80s, a light breeze. It's going to be very nice. for those fathers on Father's Day. And then by Monday, it's still looking at tons of sunshine, but the heating trend begins. Now, when we want to focus what happens after Monday, we have to look at a long-range forecast model. That's where the GFS comes in. It shows similar conditions to the other one. In fact, it doesn't show that potential of thunderstorm activity over central Oregon. This one's actually keeping it over south central Oregon. It's just a difference. Some models show it differently, and this one is pulling back on what we're expecting on the high desert. After that, sunshine through Saturday, Sunday, Monday. By Tuesday, some light clouds and maybe a few sprinkles Tuesday night going into Wednesday, and that's about it. That weak system is going to break apart before it even gets here. So between now and Saturday at 11 p.m., maybe some showers, maybe a few thunderstorms, and that'll be Friday afternoon and evening. But when it comes to wind gusts right now, not too bad at all. Actual gusts are less than 20 miles per hour, which means the wind speed is about 5 to 15 miles per hour, and it's been like that through most of the day. The next couple of hours, a little breezy for some of us, and we repeat that again on Friday. Winds starting off around the north, swinging around to the west and then the southwest. And then by Saturday, afternoon and evening winds become breezy. This is when we have that fire weather watch that I suspect will be upgraded to a red flag warning tomorrow for Saturday. So for tonight, expect 50s with a few 40s, some partial clearing. By Friday, we're looking at 80s and 90s, PM showers and thunderstorms possible. At this point, any thunderstorm activity will be isolated, and then winds get gusty. With that modest cool down Saturday and Sunday, tons of sunshine is expected. Winds taper off as we go through Sunday and into the beginning of next week. And then our next big heating trend sets up that puts us back into the 90s. So ultimately, when it comes to our weather headlines, we're looking at heat with a twist Friday on Juneteenth. Highs in the 90s and 80s, and then we have that chance of some isolated thunderstorms, and then modest cooling as we go forward through this weekend. It's still going to be a little above average for this time of the year, but not as hot as what we're looking at tomorrow, not as hot as what we have been seeing. And at the moment, there are some sprinkles showing up on radar, and satellite has a whole lot of cloud cover, but most of that isn't even reaching the ground. Now, when it comes to temperatures, keep in mind that it is going to be hot out there, and that means it's going to be even hotter inside cars, especially if you shut the doors and keep the windows rolled up. It does not take too long at all for temperatures to reach into the triple digits. Just 10 minutes if you're sitting between 80 and 85 degrees on the outside of the car. But I did want to show you one more thing. The latest drought monitor was issued across for the whole country today. And here's what it looked like last week compared to this week. And we didn't see any change over central Oregon, but the eastern side of the state and Idaho did see a couple of spots get worse when it comes to the drought, so worsening drought conditions. Now, when it comes to observed precipitation, here through the last 30 days, I don't know if you guys remember, but 2 Thursdays ago, we actually had a lot of thunderstorm activity late May, early June, and that is when we had the 20,000 some lightning strikes across the high desert, and we're still looking at some of the benefits from that when it comes to all that rain. But when we look at the last 365 days, we're near and below normal when it comes to rain. So drought conditions continue. It's not getting any better right now. And the next couple of weeks, it's not going to get better. We just don't have a good chance of thunderstorms or showers. The best chance is tomorrow, and it's not even a good one. So that is the latest in weather. Join us tonight on Central Oregon Daily News. We'll have the latest headlines and your most reliable forecast. Next show is at 6 o'clock. It's from 6 to 7 on ABC and CBS, then at 7 o'clock on CBS, then again at 11 on both channels. That's it. We'll see you then. Y'all have a good one.